So
Yeah.
here we are in this extraordinary contrast of, we're effed. We are truly effed. And yet here is the greatest opportunity in human history to find
Yeah, right.
the essence of what it is to be a human being.
Very well put. Yeah.
So does that spark you in any way to share your own process of finding a way forward that offers something other than despair?
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Poetry of Predicament podcast. And in this 2024-2025 season or chapter of the now 10-year-old Living Resilience and podcast and all the different online courses and support groups and so on that we have for the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. I'm just really pleased to welcome back a writer for the online spaces of Medium and the Good Men Project, and I'm sure others, is Richard Lowenthal. And Richard, it's just been such a pleasure to include you in such a big way. You took, after the first interview that we had, you just evidently felt some resonance with so much of what was already inside of you and driving you to be so prolific in the writing space. And that has so paid off for me, and I'm sure for us, meaning the others in the our advanced practices group, the community of practice, as well as the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course, which you just jumped into with both feet right away.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just been a massive, I don't know a better word, benefit for all of us around you, no matter what you're in, because you bring such thoughtful consideration and engagement with this world that we're in and the predicaments that we're in. So I'm really glad to have you back. And we were just talking before we hit the record button that today's topic is actually wisely divided up into two. So this will be part one of a two-part conversation. The other part will come in a week or two, whenever we can fit it in. And this one, it seems to me that you are really taking it to the next level, inviting people to a level of sobriety of what are we really present to now that we might not have been present to even months ago, because it's such a pervasive delusional reality that we're living in, that it's not uncommon for the average person to know almost nothing about these predicaments, this polycrisis that we're indeed in right now. We're not just anticipating it, we're in it.
Yeah.
And that's what you write about. That's what you've really got a brilliant gift at articulating our situation. And so I'm wondering if you would just say hello. Thanks for your patience in this intro. And and if you could just give us a tiny taste of one of your recent pieces to kind of get us sparked and get us going. And thanks for coming and talking with me today.
Yeah. Thank you. I can't think of many things or maybe anything that I'd rather be doing, frankly, because things are getting so crazy that I'm I want all the support I can get, and I'm glad to help with other people's support too. And we all need to. One of the things I've been writing about is how important it is to connect with each other and band together in these times because things are getting just so crazy and out of control. And we got to find some sanity somewhere. Like the title of that course, Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. Wow. So I totally am right there with that, and I'm glad to be here. So you wanted me to read the beginning of this recent thing I'm
I
writing,
think
right?
that would be perfect. Yep.
Good.
That would get us off to a raging start.
Okay, well, this is something I just wrote, and I just submitted it to the Good Men Project. They have an environmental slanted magazine called Greener Together, online magazine. So I submitted it to them. It's not online yet, but it should be soon. Anyway, I'm just going to read the very beginning of this, and then we'll take it from there and talk. But this is titled, The Worst Has Happened, Now What? So I'll just read the first section. You know the old saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst? Well, the worst has happened and keeps happening. Ongoing wars rage and conflicts keep escalating around the globe. Fascism is again on the rise. A convicted felon, sexual abuser, crazed demagogue, and overall scoundrel just got reelected president of the most powerful nation on earth. And the nations of the world are irretrievably behind on ever meeting our so-called climate goals. Yes, the worst is happening now. It may not be the absolute worst we can imagine. Think of global nuclear war or a large asteroid striking the Earth, but it's still pretty damn bad. So the question naturally arises, what next? What can we, meaning concerned, anxious, aware humans, do going forward?
I've been doing this work for actively for 10 years now. And I've spoken countless times about the acceleration and intensification of virtually every negative measure of human presence on the planet. In other words, human caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. All of that got its birthing back when I was 15 years old, where I got a vivid set of messages, both directly and indirectly, about that we're going to do this. We're going to take down this planet. We're going to take down our own habitat globally. And that'll mean immense destruction for human populations and other populations. And my particular focus in those teenage years and really ever since has been the oceans.
Hmm.
It was Jacques Cousteau was one of those voices. And
Yeah, he is amazing, I know.
oh man, it's just hard to overstate for me. There's a vividness that you bring, and so many others in the medium space in particular, because there are so many. I don't know quite how it became the attractor for voices of the predicament.
Hmm.
The that kind of writing. Um,
Right.
it's not for lack of articulation of what we're in. It's not for lack of data. It's not for lack of concerned citizens or activists that we are really on the edge of a precipice that promises, and actually, I think the more accurate perception that I have, and perhaps what you're saying in your writing, is we're actually over the edge. We're already in it. We're in that we're not in the Wile E. Coyote moment where he's run past the edge of the cliff and he's sort of looking around in surprise. It's actually time for we have fallen, and the little dust cloud indicating our falling is the only thing left.
Hmm.
That is very much what I'm experiencing us to be in now. And that isn't to say that I am in any way discouraging anyone from positive behavior in this time. In fact, that's the nature of this work, is to find the best of ourselves,
Right.
to call out the best of ourselves in this, the most extraordinarily, excruciatingly existential moment in human history. So thank you for reading that first paragraph. I look forward to reading the whole thing, probably a little bit later today. But I think we're going to get there. We're going to get to the heart of your writing in this conversation. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering, Richard, I've just said a bunch. You've just sparked us a bit with that first paragraph, and I'm curious, how would you start us out in this conversation today? What sort of orientation do you have in your heart, in your mind, out of what you've just read from your own writing and your own life?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, I'm kind of teetering on the edge of collapse acceptance. I mean, there's collapse awareness, which is like an entirely different thing from collapse acceptance, at least in my mind it is.
Mhm.
And making that transition from awareness to acceptance is really tough. I mean, for me, it's very difficult. I mean, because I've been off and on an environmentalist in different ways my whole life. I mean, I actually taught environmental education with kids and groups and did a lot of work out in the woods and took people on uh, extended trips, backpacking trips and things, but also taught nature awareness courses. And I've done that off and on throughout a lot of my life. And even back in the 90s, I was aware, this is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're teaching people this good stuff, but it's not making much of a dent. It's not really transforming people's consciousness, and the forces pushing people the other direction towards consumerism and wholesale destruction and ecological mayhem. I mean, the forces pushing people in that direction have always been much stronger. So, I mean, it was very hard for me to, I wrote about this a little while ago. It was very hard for me to really admit to myself that the environmental movement actually failed. I mean, it had some good effects, especially in the later part of the 20th century, like from the 70s through 2000 or maybe even beyond. I mean, it's had some good effects for sure, but they're not sufficient. I mean, they've never been sufficient to turn the tide and turn our course around. So it's like this juggernaut just keeps going, this, economic and crazed social juggernaut that we've created. It just keeps going and going. And, we're trying to stop it or at least slow it down. And it's been very difficult. So I would say, and I hate saying this, I really do. I really feel like the environmental movement failed. And it's very painful and, scary.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm not sure where to go with that right now, but that's where I went with your question.
I would have been amazed if you had anything else, anything other than what you've just shared to say, because I find myself in a very similar place when I look at the kind of the thread, the historical thread and the steps that we've been through as a society. We could just track the steps over the history of the COP meetings around climate change and the complete and utter, not only failure,
Yeah,
but spitting in the face of the entire intent of the COP meetings by continuing to expand and increase our fossil fuel consumption and our emissions
yep.
exponentially during that time. Truly the most emissions in the entire history of humanity have been released during the COP 30-year
That's
stretch.
right.
So it's it's a
That's
little bit
true.
difficult to overstate how insane we are.
Yeah,
That we are expecting anything other than a self-terminating culture, realizing at will what will clearly be too late for any serious mitigation. We're past mitigation, and we're soon to past adaptation. I don't think people quite get the exponential curve and what is really headed our way.
Hmm.
So I'm not at all thrown by your sharing just now. I appreciate it. It's real. I feel very much the same way. But because I know a bit of your heart, we've shared our hearts together with the others in the circle of various meetings, various support groups in the Living Resilience space, the
Right.
community of practice, the
Yep.
islands of sanity in a mad world. First off, I just want to say I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't have that kind of circle to sit in,
Yeah.
where people are telling the truth about what they truly are aware of, and then, as you said so wisely, then have come to acceptance of, which is a very different thing. To be acceptant of our current reality, of our
Yeah.
predicament, is excruciatingly different.
It is.
And so, what I find in these circles that you and I are now in together, there is a way to, I don't know if I'm out of place by making this assertion, but I've been making this assertions ever since I decided to create these kind of support elements for these communities.
Yeah.
And that is that this work is actually an accelerated version, a condensed version of what is at the core of many wisdom traditions for
Hmm.
thousands of years now.
Yeah.
Only we really are at that critical moment that a sadhu or a wisdom elder or a priest or an adept in some wisdom tradition, they might have a lifetime to sit in their cave or do their contemplation and they're in solitude and so
Yeah.
on.
Right. Right.
We
Yeah.
don't get to do that. I don't get to
Oh,
do that. I can't afford to go live on top of a mountaintop.
right.
I gotta make a living, and we all do. So somehow we've got this workaday world, business as usual version of life for
Yeah.
those of us who are collapse aware or even collapse acceptant. And what our challenge is to do within that, if we're on this path and sincere, is to somehow find those extraordinary inner resources. And of course, really, those are ubiquitous
Yeah.
resources. They aren't just inside of ourselves, they reflect the fabric of being that those wisdom traditions have tried so desperately to express and to articulate over the years. So
Yeah.
here we are in this extraordinary contrast of, we're effed. We are truly effed. And yet, here is the greatest opportunity in human history to find
Yeah. Right.
the essence of what it is to be human being.
Very well put. Yeah.
So, does that spark you in any way to share your own process of finding a way forward that offers something other than despair?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think you're right that this poly crisis we're in, this whole horrendous predicament is really kind of forcing us to into an accelerated conscious, I would call it conscious evolution, accelerated conscious evolution. And it's a very very challenging in terms of collapse acceptance. I think the biggest hurdle for me, and I don't feel like I'm over it yet, is there's a lot of anger, but I feel a lot of anger about it, what we're doing to the planet, of course. But under that, the even harder part for me to deal with is the intense sadness and grief about it.
Hmm.
And the really intense disappointment in humanity. I mean, I don't want to sound condescending. I mean, I love people in a lot of ways. I really care about people and what we're doing, but I'm really so fed up with humanity and the way we think and do things. And I'm just so disappointed in, sorry, I'm just so disappointed in humanity and our whole modern, I don't know, modern ideas about progress. And I think the main thing that disappoints me is everything is so externally focused in the sense of, conquering nature, manipulating nature, controlling the world, and accumulating more and more stuff. Everything's all externally focused, but nobody wants to take the time or energy to really develop on a soul level, to grow and emphasize growth on the soul level. And that is so lacking. And I mean, it's everywhere, this lack of awareness, lack of commitment to soul growth. And that, of course, feeds the destruction. It feeds the crazy mindset that people are in about progress and constant growth and accumulation and materialism, all this crap. It's so that's, the disappointment is very hard for me to fully accept. Some part of me just doesn't want to admit that humanity is this messed up and this crazy and this backward. It's like, what the fuck? Sorry, but what the hell? I mean,
Hmm.
what's wrong with us,
Yeah.
That's the hardest part for me.
Yeah. In putting together this work, I've learned so much about what appears to be truly human nature.
Hmm.
I think we throw around that kind of terminology a lot, like somebody's actually figured out what human nature is, or the current popular way to describe it is, well, we're just not wired for this.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, right.
the
Yeah,
psychoneuro
sure.
languaging and framing for our behavior. And that is one aspect of challenge in creating this curriculum. This curriculum of this living resilience, this little organization with all the online training and support groups and so on. It's I don't know how to create curriculum for this body of work without um, first having a fierce commitment to becoming aware of what's actually occurring,
Yeah.
which may sound obvious, like, of course, but really our society is designed to delude itself.
Oh, yeah.
We are
Sure.
completely and utterly delusional, and we've given ourselves not only free rein to stay delusional, it's insisted upon that we stay delusional
Yep.
so that we will continue to just toe the line, just do our work and play our part in the machine.
Yeah, be good
Machine,
client consumers. Right.
exactly, exactly.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Whew. So, what I'm personally most engaged with in my own practices, I guess I should say a little bit about how I've constructed this body of work to offer it to others, because it really just came out of me writing a book called The Impossible Conversation, choosing reconnection and um, choosing reconnection and resilience in at the end of business as usual. But it's been a while since I've had to remember my own book title. Um, what I realized after writing that, my very first book, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I realized that this was, my exploration of what's actually going on, and that most people would not do the work, the research and then the writing itself after that kind of aha moment, like this is really happening at global scale, and it's happening within my old guy lifetime.
Yep.
So in putting together this body of work, it seems really essential to provide whatever resources and practices are needed at each level of engagement with this predicament, with this actual collapse that we're in. And it starts at the very beginning with what's been going on around the world for the past few years at scale, which is there's some kind of collapse, there's some kind of massive weather event, extreme weather event that will be a fire or a flood, or just in this past few months, we've seen 200,000 acres of greenhouses in Spain, which provide, you can only imagine 200,000 acres of greenhouses, how much produce for Europe that provides. They were completely destroyed in the most recent floods and extreme storms.
Hmm.
So some number of millions of people, one way or another, have had their lives disturbed. So they might
Oh,
not have
yeah.
been collapse aware up till now, but they sure get something's going on. And so at that early level, the only thing we really need to do for people is to give them first aid level resilience skills.
Yeah.
That's literally at the level of, my family and I have we live in Houston. We've had a decimating hurricane coming through, and our house and our neighborhood are completely annihilated. And we're sleeping on the high school gym floor with 50 other families. All that's really appropriate there. There's no advanced skill set there. There's no
Right.
cosmic, spiritual awakening or so. That's later.
Right. Right.
All that we need at this level is the ability to what's called self-regulate or to co-regulate. If I regulate my system, I bring myself back to some amount of awareness and presence in my own body, because that kind of thing will just knock us out of our body. And if I can do that for myself, I can then turn around and be of service to my loved ones that are right there on the gym floor, like bring us back together and have us calm our systems down.
Right. There's
So that's
another,
just, yeah, good.
I think there's another aspect of, you call it like first aid level, dealing with all this collapse and craziness. And I think another level of it is at least having some basic physical preparations either in process or completed. And I write about that in that most recent thing I was starting to read too. Um, but it's really scary when you read about Americans in particular. I'm just focusing on Americans, on our lack of awareness of preparedness
Yeah,
and how little money people even have for emergencies. I mean, I've read about this a number of times. I mean, a lot of people apparently, this certainly isn't true of me, and I was never even a high income person. I always had low income jobs, but I managed to save money over the years, and
yeah.
and you know, I'm doing all right for now. But I have money available if I need it. I have some, thousands or several $1,000s available if I need it. But apparently, a lot of people have maybe not even $500. If they have a real emergency, they can't even access $500.
Exactly.
And that's crazy. I mean, with the amount of money that, I mean, I understand people are struggling economically. A lot of people are concerned about inflation. People are always complaining about how horrible this economy is. But the fact of the matter is the economy is actually humming along and it's doing pretty well for this type of economy. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Mm.
People are making more money than ever before, even though it's not quite keeping up with inflation. And yet, people don't save money. People do not prepare for the
Mhm.
future. I mean, it's like everything's focused on now, now, now. But, pretty soon we're going to have some preparations completed. I mean,
Mhm.
what I said in this article, and I think it's really true, is right now, I mean, for now, maybe for the next year or two, our economy is actually functioning. I mean,
Mhm.
supply chains may be impacted by severe weather. There's problems here and there for sure. But overall, the supply chains are functioning. The economy is functioning. We can get food. We can get toilet paper. We can get things like that. And we need to do it. I mean, we need to start having not a lot of super prepping or survivalism or any of that nonsense. I don't believe in that stuff. But I think it is important to have some preparations for when things really start to go south. I mean, you really should have a month or two or three of cash and water and food and stuff you can use if things really go south fast in the near future. And yet, I don't think most people are anywhere near that place. I mean, I'm getting there. I've been doing that for a while. And I think it's really important. So, and my point is that it's not just having the actual physical stuff, like the food or the water or the cash. It's also, it allows you to have a little more confidence that you can weather this shit.
Mhm.
It gives you some, well, just, yeah, it just gives you an awareness that you're somewhat prepared anyway. I mean, you can never be totally prepared for what's coming, I don't think, but you're somewhat prepared as much as possible, at least on the physical level. And then you can also do the emotional work and the healing, internal healing that we've been focusing on or talking about. But you got to do both. That's the point. I mean, you really need both. You got to have the inner work, the inner preparation, and you got to have the outer preparation too.
Yes, you just pretty much wrapped up a great summary of what the work of living resilience is, and that we often call it the inner work of collapse.
Yeah, right.
There's you know, uh, the hard-edged physical realities that need to be prepared for as best you can.
Yeah,
But perhaps even more important is that set of inner skills and capacities
yep,
that allow us to hopefully be as present as possible, even in the face of huge
right.
and ever growing at this point stressors in our lives.
I know.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is there anything else you could tell us about what's current? What are some of the current threads in your writing, in addition to what you've started us out with? You've introduced us a little bit, give us a little taste of, paragraph. And I'm wondering if there's anything else that you'd want to mention about this current wave of your writing. Because if you're anything like me, I'm not a regular writer like you are. If anything, I do video pieces from time to time.
Right.
But it seems like you're on a new level. You've taken your expression of what's going on and perhaps your orientation toward it to a new level. Does that ring for you? And could you describe it at all? Or
Hmm. I don't know if I'm at a new level. I'm just exploring things, exploring what we're all dealing with in
Mhm.
various ways.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I am quite interested in and focusing on somewhat is um, the whole issue of hope and whether hope is gone or not. And I've gotten pretty fed up with the common understandings of that idea, of hope. I don't really believe in hope as most people think about it. I think it's nonsense, frankly. I mean, I guess I would describe most people's hope as they're aware that there's a problem or they're aware that there's some negative thing happening, but then they kind of flip the switch in their mind and say, oh, but I hope it'll get better,
Hmm.
or let's hope we can deal with this. And to me, that's pointless. I mean, it's like it means nothing. It's like
Yeah.
it's just a kind of mental evasion or something. But I do think that we have to have some kind of hopeful vision of the future in a way, and I'm trying to put my finger on that. Maybe we can talk about it. And I'm trying to get a sense of, if traditional hope and, most people's version of hope is just total BS, what is some kind of valid hope? Or is there any kind of valid hope that can sustain us, I guess, and help us get through this dark time? Because I think we do need that. We need some kind of positive energy or positive vision. But I'm
Yeah.
not sure what that is. I'm not sure what that is really yet.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'd like to just plug in here at this early stage of a conversation about hope. Some of my tracks through this for the past 10 years, it was an active part of writing my book, which was at that time, I kept asking people, how do they define hope? Why do they keep using the word hope? What does it mean to
Yeah.
them? And really, this is my interpretation. Almost nobody said it exactly this way, but it seemed like I could lump so many of the responses into one sentence. And it was something along the lines of, gee, I hope the experts fix all these pesky problems
Yeah.
so that we
Right.
can get back to life and business as usual. And that
Yeah.
was really what they were saying. Without saying those exact words, that just seemed like that was the spirit of what folks were really meaning when they said, well, you got to give people hope.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons I think it's total BS too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there's one other voice that I'd like to just bring back from those conversations 10 years ago. I used to do quite a few interviews with a guy named Derek Jensen, who's one of the most prolific authors of the strained and uh, collapsing human condition for so long now. He's a brilliant, brilliant writer, and I'm gonna just try my best to piece back together his definition of hope, and I know I'll slay it, but it's
Okay.
something like having a pointed desire for things over which we have no agency,
Hmm.
a pointed desire for things or outcomes over which we have no agency. And
That's an
that,
odd
that
definition, but it fits. Yeah.
kind of sets a possible future thread for you and me in conversation, if you'd like. That I've always been fascinated by how we engage our as- I believe it's a core human element called, do I have agency in my life? Do I have the ability to affect the people around me, the world around me, my own circumstances, my own well-being? Do I have an active ability to call on, a capacity to call on in myself to make a difference in any of those elements and more? That's what I would call agency. And
Yeah.
I would say that uh, a core piece of what has our business as usual structures stay in place as long as they have and become as seamlessly nihilistic as they are,
Yeah.
is that they appear to have sucked out any appreciable amount of our agency, individual or
Hmm.
collective. And as I keep exploring the inner reaches of this conversation that you and I are having right now, um, I think the people that are most exciting for me to explore with are the people that are having some insight into even the most small and intimate and close in intimate relationships, family, neighborhood, at whatever intimate level, they're able to start to grow seedlings of agency,
Mhm.
tiny seedlings of agency, even in the face of what's going on in this world, which is daunting. So, enough of me. I just wanted to lay out those elements. Those are things around hope and agency that I'm been grappling with for quite some time, and that's their current state. So is there more that you would like to share or reflect on about this hope stuff?
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking of a couple of things that, as you were talking, that was sparking some other ideas in me too. And one thing that strikes me, and I'm not totally sure about this big distinction between inner and outer, but just for the sake of convenience, I'm going to use these terms. I would say that oh, are you there? Okay. Yeah. I'd say in the outer realm, meaning, every aspect of our outer existence, the outer world and climate change and the ecological destruction, all these different things going on in the outer world. Um, we've messed things up, so badly, and our current course is so out of control and so destructive that I would say there is no realistic hope that we're going to save not the planet. The planet is going to survive no matter what. I mean, the planet will be here.
Mhm.
There will be life on the planet, but a lot of the life forms that exist now might not be here, and that might include us.
Yeah,
So, I'm not worried about the planet. We're not going to kill the planet. I know that. But we can really mess it up badly, and that's what we're doing. So, in terms of, hope for outer healing of the planet or outer progress, in a positive sense, I'd say that hope is gone. I mean, that hope is just dead, gone, kaput. I mean, it's not it's not there anymore. I mean, you can pretend it's there, but it's not. But I think the air when I want to make it clear that I think there is a lot of hope in the way we deal with our inner lives and our interpersonal lives.
hmm
I mean, I've experienced a lot of healing in my life, both from my own work on myself, but also therapies and all kinds of, interactive programs and groups like the one we're doing,
yes,
as part of Islands of Sanity. And there's this whole other element of life, which is like inner and interactive, and it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's heart-centered, and that area, I think we have plenty of hope. There's
yes,
plenty of good stuff there. I mean, that's where the good stuff is. I mean, to me, that's the juicy stuff. That's where the really good stuff is, and that's where we can put our hope, I'd say, because that's real. I mean, no matter what is going on in the outer world, that can be there if we choose to create it, if we choose to focus on it, with other people and within ourselves, we can find that place of beauty and love and healing within ourselves and also share that with other people. And I think that's going to be incredibly crucial in these upcoming years because as the outer collapse intensifies, we're going to have to find more ways to tune into that inner level of hope and love and sharing and all those good things, which don't cost anything. They're not physical. I mean,
right.
we don't need a high functioning economy for that stuff to happen. I mean, we need some basic things like a little bit of food and water to sustain us, but
Yeah,
all this crap, all this consumerism, we don't need that stuff really.
yeah,
But we do need these other things more. We need the inner connection. We need the interconnection with others and with
yeah,
life. That's even more important, but we're totally neglecting it,
yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better myself. That's why in 2017 when I put out the book, I just promised that I was going to put out some resources for people, some practices, some resources, some help.
Right.
The kind of help that I would love to have had when I started to do the research for the book, which was,
Yeah.
there was nothing. There was a little bit of Joanna Macy's work that
Oh
recon.
yeah, yeah, she's good. I know her, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lovely workshop, and I guess people could do it once a year, and find value, and
Right.
God bless her. But that's not much,
Yeah.
and even today, I think that this living resilience offering of this inner work of collapse and the
Yep.
practices which we barely begun. We're 3 months into this
Right.
year-long program, which, by the way, for folks who are listening who are brand new to this, all the links to all the stuff we're talking about will be in the show notes. And this year-long program doesn't matter when you come in. You could come in the last month of a 12-month program, and you're be fine. You can start with the recordings and the practices and so on. Really, what's most important is, if at all possible, bring somebody along with you so that you can have a buddy in this extraordinary study, and experiential work. Um, what I'm noticing, Richard, is, I'm thinking that probably as a pause point between this first episode of our conversations together, it's kind of setting the scene for what is this work? Why the inner work of collapse? And I think we've kind of given people who might be new to this stuff a fairly clear picture of, yeah, we got some serious stuff going on this planet that is really
Yeah.
inarguable anymore.
Yeah.
And so what do you do in the face of that which is inarguable? And
Yep.
you just summarized it as well as I've heard it said, that what's available to us may not be agency at the level of any major change to the global
Yep.
business as usual structures that are taking us down. I don't
Yep.
know of anybody who has that kind of power.
Yep.
It's a David and Goliath times some ridiculous scale. But there is this inner work. There is this extraordinary, ubiquitous oneness that's within us all as an innate part of some little seedling of that awareness, of that
Yeah.
ubiquitous interbeing, that oneness, um, that is a part of the human experience. And that may just be the only consistent capacity or skill or power that we have as human beings that stands any chance of standing up to those business as usual dark forces that are taking us down. That may just be the best that we've got.
Yeah, it's not a outward physical antidote, but it is a inner and important antidote. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I would invite you to uh, finish up our time together, complete this envelope. I think we could both perhaps offer up a little summary of this part of the conversation, if we will. And I'd also like to just give a taste to what sounds like it would be a really great part two in the final in this brief series that we're going to do, in which we're going to explore, okay, so what exactly is going on that you and I are calling this business as usual self-terminating culture? What's driving it? What are the dynamics? What are the shadow elements that we appear to be uh, crushed by. It just seems like it's so huge and it's so much a part of us
Mm.
globally and individually. So I'm looking forward to exploring that neighborhood, if you will, in our next
Now, I
conversation.
got can I add one thing here?
Oh yeah, of course.
Uh, yeah, I thought of this a few minutes ago and you just reminded me of it again. In terms of this kind of false hope stuff that's so prevalent, um, a lot of environmentalists and people who are interested, activists, environmentalists, people who are interested in social change, they'll say things like, well, we just got to make people more aware, and people just have to decide. We got to get a big group of people together, and we'll boycott this product, or we'll boycott this whatever.
Yeah.
And they always the problem that I see is that, yeah, sure, that sounds great, but that's not where people are at. I mean, people's minds and their hearts are not in the place where they're going to really reject some of the foundational stuff of this culture. So, you're setting up kind of a no-win situation. First of all, it's like, yeah, we're going to hope we can get enough people together to do this boycott or do this action or whatever to save the environment. But then you never have enough people who are really willing to do these things. You don't have enough people who are willing to change their minds or change their way of life. So, it ends up being this yet another disappointing environmental initiative or endeavor.
Yep.
And, you know, so I guess my point is, that kind of false hope leads to intense disappointment and it never really actualizes. I mean, we don't understand, or people aren't willing to admit, and this is part of the collapse acceptance thing too. People aren't willing to admit that most people just aren't interested in making these changes.
Yes.
They're so stuck in this way of life that we've got, or this way of thinking that we've got, or both. And it's the self-perpetuating thing, which I'm sure is what we'll end up talking about next time to a large degree, and how it gets self-perpetuated, within each person, but in between people with advertising, propaganda, disinformation, all this crap that we're constantly fed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly it. And you brought up earlier some of your earlier writings and thinking about these issues, and it's very consistent or parallel with my own. And that is what's sometimes called the white man's virus or white man's sickness or Wetiko
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Wendigo from indigenous cultures here in Turtle Island in the
Yeah.
USA, and
Yeah.
that there is clearly a sickness that has its roots in our disconnection.
Yeah.
That however it is we've created this white culture, if you will,
Yeah.
that at its core, in order to be a functioning part of it, especially to be wealthy in the white man's culture, it's built on the separation,
Yeah.
the separation from other people, separation from earth, separation from the web of life, separation. Without that separation, we would be still connected in some vital way, some innate and beautiful human way. We'd be actually feeling those warning messages
Right.
that it's not right to be suppressing or killing or genocide or slavery, whatever it is. This imagine the strength of the innate signals in our heart if we
Yeah.
haven't disconnected. So perhaps one of our biggest superpowers, if you will, in a negative way, is that uh, we've inured ourselves, we've deadened ourselves to those very human signals
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
this is
absolutely.
not right. This is not right relationship with Earth. This is not right relationship with these beyond human beings that were our
Right.
fellow Earthlings. This is not right to be treating these human beings in slavery, in or
Yeah.
just the inequity that's today, or the genocides, and on the list goes. And that, so we're kind of roughly pointing out this big old neighborhood called Wetiko, called white man's virus or disease. And
Yep.
that's where we're going to go in part two is, so we've got a sense of that there are inner resources that we can start to cultivate alone and together, especially together.
Yep.
So I appreciate that we've gotten there today. We haven't covered the whole ground. We just have pointed out, it
Yeah.
is possible. It can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But oddly encouraged that you and I are going to spend some time in that shadow realm, that
Hmm.
human global scale shadow realm of Wetiko, because some of the first words you and I talked about at the very beginning of our time here is what we need first and foremost. The beginning of this path of becoming collapse acceptant or collapse aware
Yeah.
is to be able to truly see what's going on, be absolutely as present as we can muster
Right.
to what our the effects of our behavior is. So that's the kind of weirdness that I am. I look forward to this conversation because it's
Hmm.
only in the exploration and telling the
Yeah.
truth about the
Yep.
shadow we carry that we have any chance whatsoever to be able to dissipate that, to heal that, to bring some kind of connectedness at any level in our lives. So yeah, it just seems bizarre that I'm somehow really looking forward to this conversation because I know,
Yeah.
just vividly
Painful,
know.
but it's kind of pain sorry, sort of painful and wonderful at the same time, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm kind of giving you my little summary and looking forward to next time. Is there anything that you'd like to say, or especially if there's anything that you would like to say to someone who's kind of new to this whole conversation? Is there anything that you'd like to offer to kind of
Hmm.
spur them into the next level of learning about this and experiencing some of this material?
Hmm. Uh yeah, I can think of some things. I think learning as much as possible about what's really going on with these various processes that are all starting to fall apart or collapse around the world. That is crucial, but it can also be overwhelming and like you call it sometimes the fire hose to the face of all this,
Mhm.
scary, crazy information and can be a lot. So that's why I think it's crucial to have the kind of group support that you've been talking about and that you're doing and offering. I think the group support's really crucial at this time, and also individual connections with people where you can talk about this stuff and just be real because our society doesn't want to look at a lot of this stuff. I mean, our society is in such big time denial and the avoidance of reality going on in our society is just pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So you got to have a place where you can be free to be yourself and explore all these questions and explore all these issues and start dealing with it up front. I mean, not shoving it to the back burner and not denying it, but just actually dealing with it in a real direct way with other people and within yourself. But you've also said you got to titrate it too. You can't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
It can be a lot. So you not got to know when to back off. I mean, for me, I'll be sitting here at my computer and I'll be reading something that, just really scares the hell out of me or freaks me out or upsets me or whatever. And sometimes I'll just say, okay, I can't do any more right now. And I'll go play a video game for 15 minutes or 20 minutes and play online, whatever.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, that's just a little respite and it just gives me a little break. And then I can stop that and then say, okay, now I'm ready to read some more or write some more or do some more or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, you can't just do it continually because it'll drive you nuts. It's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I agree. Richard, I've just so enjoyed getting to know you and your writing and your participation, your just immense heart that you bring to our sessions in Islands of Sanity and in the community of practice. And I so look forward to this. Again, I just consider it a really advanced level conversation that we're going to have in part two.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
usually so far beyond the average person's capacity to, they if they were having a hard time being collapse aware, it'd be real inappropriate to introduce Watiko and the whole mind virus.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
So
pretty mind-boggling stuff, really.
yeah. So I just appreciate our conversation today and all the good work you do with your writing and on this
You
Thanksgiving
too. You too.
on this Thanksgiving weekend. I just hope you have some sweet time with your spouse and enjoy the winter as it's coming on and the stillness of the day. And I look forward to us not only in our next part two of this conversation, but also hopefully being able to see you in the sessions of our support group next
Yep,
week.
definitely. Yeah.
All right, brother.
I'll be there. Yep. I'm looking forward to it too and continuing this conversation. It's a good one. Yep. Thank you.
Take care, my man.